Greetings, YouTube. As I've mentioned in the past, I work in a factory, and as part of the building structure, we have air vents. And these air vents pull air in from the outside of the building, and in the warm weather, they chill it, and then they pump it into the directly at us in metal tubes with directional heads. In the cooler weather, they just pull the air from the outside. Occasionally, they can even heat it, but most of the time, you don't need that. The air is required. It's like we have to have the fresh air because it's our only source of fresh air. Unfortunately, we're at an airport, so occasionally we get like jet exhaust blown into our areas. But also, occasionally, we have wildlife pulled in. Insects are primarily the poor travelers. Nothing quite like being smacked in the head by a moth that's being projected at a high rate of speed. Well, when I was at work Tuesday night, a fly ended up being chucked into my work area. And the fly landed on my work table. And the fly just kind of sat there. And I reached over and went, poop. And the fly responded. It moved, but it didn't fly away. This is not a good sign for a fly. They should have moved away just as soon as my hand got near it. So I picked a piece of paper up and I used it to move him out of the way. I didn't see any reason to smack him or kill him, and he wasn't bothering me and I wasn't going to bug him. So I went about my business, and the fly went about his. He tried to climb, he couldn't. He tried to flex his wings, and he couldn't. One of his legs didn't work anymore. And over the course of the next 2.5 hours, while I did my job, I watched this fly die. And right near the end, when I actually thought he was dead because he hadn't moved in so long, he suddenly began to move in little circles, just turning himself on an axis with his legs. And he'd go around like two or three times, and he'd stop. And then he'd stretch and raise his head as high as he could. And then he'd bring it back down, and he'd do it again, and he'd raise his head in another direction. He did this 3 times. And then he got really still. He listed to one side, and eventually rolled onto his back. I flipped him back onto his legs, or at least onto his side. He twitched a few more times, then that was it. He never moved again, and the air vent air began to eventually push him around a bit, so I knew that there was nothing left for him to respond with because he wasn't with us. Now, I've killed 1,000 flies in my life. Heck, I've probably eaten that many food over the years. And I've never just sat back and watched one die. And it was a strangely intimate, humbling experience. Just to do my job, and this fly just ended. Now, I don't know if you are a theist and believe in a soul or spirit, or you believe that we're just a ghost in the machine, software in our meat. But at the end, something goes away. And when it does, there's just a husk left behind. Now, I can't imagine there's a whole lot in a fly to go away, but I think there's something. And now that fly doesn't have that something anymore. I found it interesting. I found it oddly, strangely moving. Yes, I know I'm probably seeing more in this than most people would. But that's what I did last night. I did my job. I watched something die.